Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Friday, January 15th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We're talking college sports today and focusing in on Kansas basketball and Kansas State football. The Jayhawks are coming off a loss at Oklahoma State, and it has beat writer Jesse Newell wondering if KU should essentially play for March now. That is, using the remainder of the regular season to perhaps experiment with minutes and style to get things in place for the NCAA Tournament. Of course, KU plays for the conference title every year, so obviously not an easy call. Maybe the Jayhawks will know more about the direction of their season after Monday's game at second-ranked Baylor. Jesse and Gary Bedore break it down. After a break, Kellis Robinett joins us to discuss Kansas State's decision to move its 2021 home opener against Stanford in Manhattan to Arlington, Texas, home of the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's a good move. We also covered Darren Sproles' election to the College Football Hall of Fame, which was announced earlier this week, and we wonder about the next Kansas State player to enter the Hall. So let's get started with Gary and Jesse. Jesse and Gary are here. I picked up my Kansas City Star this morning, and in the top left-hand corner, there's a story that says words to the effect of, should Kansas punt the regular season and just play for March? Now, two things. One, I actually saw that story appear online a day or so ago, and so just catching up with the print edition. But more interesting was the concept of the story, Jesse, that based on results through the first couple weeks of Big 12 season, and what's happening with Kansas coming off the loss to Oklahoma State, there's a school of thought that maybe should be some more experimentation with this team, getting it ready for March. Was that your thought going into that story?
Yeah, basically, usually 4-2 in the Big 12 does not put you out of the Big 12 race, but this year is just a little bit different than others because really Kansas isn't the problem. The problem is that Texas and Baylor, especially Baylor, are really, really good this year. So, that's sort of the point of it. I kind of kept repeating it. The good news is the bad news for Kansas. They've had to, and Bill Self has. I mean, we know the streak. That's what he's going to be known for the rest of his career, but they always take an approach where the most important thing is winning every individual game. And that's because the Big 12 conference play has been so important for them throughout the course of the last 17 years. The fact of the matter is right now, the odds would tell you the percentages, KU has about a 3% chance to share the Big 12 this year. So they kind of have a little bit of runway here, a little bit maybe of breathing room to try to figure some things out as a team rather than to just grind and try to figure out how to win every single individual game, when more than likely what's going to happen at the end of the season is they're going to be a 3 or a 4 seed. They're going to be about third in the Big 12, and they're not going to win the Big 12. So it kind of gives KU, I think, a few more options to figure things out. I think a lot of things, I just read an ESPN article today with 4 of their analysts talking about Kansas, and 3 of them talked about Kansas not having an identity. And I agree. I think Kansas needs to come up with something that they can go to. They feel like that they are this, and they don't have that yet. So I think if they aren't just so hyper-focused on every single step of the journey and maybe kind of raise their eyes to the horizon and say what big picture is good for this team, I think they could spin this one to positive. And every year there's a team that makes the Final Four that finishes like 4th or 5th in their conference and figures things out late. Why can't Kansas be that team this year?
Well, part of what you're talking about is style of play, and part of it is personnel and who's getting minutes. And one thing we have learned in the last day or two, Gary, was one of those players who'd been coming off the bench is not going to be available to Kansas. And this is somebody who might have benefited from more playing time to get his game developed. And that's Bryce Thompson. What's the update on him?
He broke his index finger on his right hand, shooting hand, when he dove into a pile with a bunch of other players at the end of the KU loss on Tuesday night at Stillwater. He'll be out. Self said yesterday he has to let it heal on its own for about 2 weeks. Then he might get to start shooting around and stuff. So Self said he didn't know if it would be 4 weeks. He didn't know if it would be 7 weeks. But it sounds like he'll be out for at least a month.
What did we think of his game up until now? I don't know what to think. Look, he's obviously a highly touted recruit, but just seemed to be a little bit slow to develop. And maybe, Jesse, that's what you were the point of the whole thing was to get guys like him a little bit more playing time and more comfortable in the system.
Yeah, I mean, he fits into kind of what KU does. He's a big combo guard. They have a lot of those types of guys that sort of can defend different positions 1 through 4 and are switchable in that way. I think he has a really good basketball IQ. He's obviously a coach's son. And Gary talked earlier, he has a mid-range game, even though I think after Gary wrote the article, he gave him the SI jinx because I don't think he made a mid-range shot after that. But he was out for a while after Christmas anyway because of a back injury. This was the first game he got back, and then he breaks his finger. So obviously that's going to hurt his development. But to be completely honest, Blair, he's not an answer offensively for them just because he's been pretty lousy when it comes to shooting threes. If you can make a lot of mid-range jumpers, it's great, but it's probably not what you want to bank your whole offensive skill set on. And he's also been just a touch turnover prone too when he's been in there. So a developing freshman, again, a guy that I think that could have gotten more minutes down the stretch and especially could have helped them defensively. But if KU is ailing most offensively, and that's what the numbers would tell us at this point, he was probably not going to answer those sorts of questions. But a rotation piece, absolutely, and somebody who definitely could have gotten better down the stretch.
Who might benefit from a change in philosophy over the final couple months of the regular season? Whose game can develop to a point where it really benefits Kansas on both ends of the floor?
I think the number one guy to me is he's already playing, but Jalen Wilson. We saw earlier stretches when he was in and KU played 5 guards where he was really, really good. He was distributing, he was scoring, he was getting past his man. And that was sort of the matchup that KU sort of always exploited was they had Jalen Wilson go against the other team's 5-man, and he could either shoot over the top of them or drive by them. So if KU goes more 5 guards and experiments more that way, and again, this has been successful for them in small stretches this year, I think he could really help. But the obvious answer to me is Tyron Grant Foster. He's a guy coming into the season. There was some talk, from inside the program that he might be the team's leading scorer, and he can barely get off the bench now. He's a guy that has had some poor shot selection, is turnover prone as well, and he can give KU. When I talk about Bryce Thompson's kind of what they have and could help them. Tyron Grant Foster could give them something that they don't have as much of, which is athleticism and playing above the rim. And this KU team really could use that, I think, at this point. So I would say those two guys, but Tyron Grant Foster more than most. He's the guy that had high expectations going into the season and has not come close to meeting those so far.
I'll tell you, Gary, a guy that intrigues me a little bit is Tristan Enaruna. What have you seen from him in the last handful of games? Seems like he's getting about 10, 11 minutes a game, get you a couple of buckets. Again, good size. What's his potential? What's his upside?
Well, supposedly he's their best NBA prospect, but Self keeps mentioning that he gives up backdoor layups on defense. So Self has probably given him he's let him play through a couple mistakes of late, but early on he really wasn't. And last game he was 2 for 2 at Okie State, but he had one good game. I forget which one. He had like 12 points, but he's got a bright future. Apparently he's supposed to be the best young player out of the Netherlands in a long time for their national team in the future and stuff. But I would say the light definitely hasn't come on yet for him.
What do you think, Jesse? What's Tristan's upside?
Well, yeah, if they're going to play a 5-guard lineup, him playing the 5, I think is great. And 6'8", 7-foot wingspan, can challenge shots. His problem is exactly what Gary mentioned, which is he's sort of an anti-Bill Self player right now. He's lackadaisical. He doesn't always have his mind in the game. He doesn't hustle as much as Bill Self would like. You can look at these small examples. Gary talked about getting beat back door. That's just a lack of focus. And that casualness is the opposite of what Bill Self really values, which is always being intense. And I think it's part of the conversation he had after the Oklahoma State game, which is wanting his guys to take more pride on the defensive end and try harder. The other thing is I can't know exactly on in the last play because it didn't ask Self about it afterwards, but the play that Marcus Garrett got blocked at the rim, it's a similar play to what Kansas has run a lot, where they kind of clear out a side, and Aruna, for some reason, he goes into the lane instead of like cutting up top. And because that happened, Cade Cunningham, the guy who was defending Aruna, kind of camped in the lane, stayed there, and then blocked Marcus Garrett's shot. So again, I don't know right now if that's play design. I don't know if that was Tristan Aruna going to the wrong spot, but it sure seems like that's another example. If Tristan Aruna didn't go to the spot he was supposed to, and did in turn sort of get Marcus Garrett's shot blocked by a help defender and then fouled the guy in transition on the way back for a 3-point play, those are kind of the small things we're talking about here. I mean, Tristan Aruna can help this team, but he can't help this team if he's doing the things that Bill Self hates, and those small things that are sometimes the margin between winning and losing. So again, I can't put that blame exactly on him, but it sure seems like watching the video that a similar type play that KU's run before would have him in a different spot. And so if he didn't execute that well at game point, that's not a point in his favor either. And so, those are the small things that are keeping him from being really good.
That was a heck of a play by Cunningham, too, the great freshman. Yeah. He not only with the block, but the save, and then started the run out that I believe ended up in a 3-point play. The game was tied at that moment or so.
Yes.
Anyway. Okay. Hey, Gary, so what are the Jayhawks, what do they have coming up?
Iowa State at 1 p.m. Saturday in Lawrence. Iowa State's 0-5 in the league. They've only played 9 games, 2-7. Then they go to Baylor on Monday. Baylor is still undefeated, travels to Texas Tech on Saturday.
Wow, what a week.
It's kind of a crucial stretch. If it's like KU normally does, Baylor will lose at Tech and then KU will win in Waco. If it's a especially different year, Baylor will have a 3-game lead over KU by late Monday night.
Boy, KU Baylor, it's intriguing, right? It's a terrific. It could be a terrific game. Jesse, before you came on, Gary and I were talking. I kind of like Kansas on the road as much as I like them at home this year. So maybe, I don't know. I think Bill Self will certainly challenge his guys when they go down to Waco, and they're not afraid to play in games like that. They're not intimidated by the setting. Baylor just seems to have too much for everybody in the Big 12.
Yeah, this is sort of what I'm talking about, Blair. I posted this online yesterday, but right now, as it stands, KU would be about an 8-point underdog in that game. And Bill Self has never been an 8-point underdog at Kansas. So when we're talking about KU being a good team, but not a great team, Baylor is a great team. KU is a good team, and that is resulting right now in what could potentially be the biggest spread of an NCAA or of a line, of a Vegas line of Bill Self's tenure at Kansas. And so that's what I'm talking about. KU needs to figure out a ceiling that can play with Baylor. How can they play in a game Monday where maybe some things happen their way, maybe some breaks fall their way, but they're able to compete in a game where they're an 8-point underdog? That's the answer that Kansas needs to find. Now, it might drop your floor a little bit. Maybe you're going to play a lousy game and lose by 20, but right now it doesn't matter. I mean, again, you're going to be about a 3 or 4 seed. You're going to finish third in the Big 12, but that sort of speaks to this year's team, which is not only is Baylor kind of up here on this different level, but Kansas is sort of on a lower level for what Bill Self is. Now, still a good team, still top 15-ish, that sort of thing. But this year's a little bit different than most others.
All right. Jesse Newell, Gary Bedore. Hey, great catching up with you guys, and we'll do it again next week.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. Kellis is here. What's up, Kellis? How you doing?
I'm doing good, Blair. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah. Great talking to you. And there was some news this week with Kansas State football, scheduling news. Always like scheduling news. And especially when it's an attractive game, and we learned of a nice game coming up for Kansas State to open the 2021 season. Tell us about it, and then I want to get into why I think it's a good idea and see if you agree with me.
Yeah, so the game that has previously been scheduled against Stanford for a home game here in Manhattan for 2021, after a year and a half of discussions about it, they've decided to go ahead and move it to Arlington, Texas. They're going to play it at AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play. They also talked to Arrowhead about playing it there, but the money was just a little bit better down in Texas. And there's a unique situation where they had 8 home games lined up next season. They figured that's pretty rare. They don't normally have an abundance like that. So when some other facilities came in and said, "Hey, what do you think about playing that at a neutral site?" They listened, and they're going to go ahead and play their first game on a neutral field in 11 years. It hasn't been done since they last played Iowa State and had Farmageddon at Arrowhead in 2010.
Boy, anytime you can get Farmageddon on the show puts a big smile on my face, man. All right, so interesting. And it'll be, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, obviously it'll be the first time for Kansas State playing at AT&T Stadium. They have been in the building for media days because that's where Big 12 has held media days.
They did play one Cotton Bowl there. I will say that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. So they have been in the big scoreboard building.
That's right. They got beaten pretty badly by Arkansas. So I don't know if you can really say they played, but they have been there.
But they were there. But the team was there. Okay. Listen, so when the news came out, there was some fan feedback that suggested, look, what are we doing? We're taking an attractive home game away, first of all, from Manhattan. And because I think this is the return for a game that Kansas State played at Stanford in 2016.
Yes.
And so this would have been a really attractive home game. Kansas State, as we know, doesn't always have the most attractive non-conference opponents, although that's changed in recent years. There have been some teams that come in there. Auburn, I can remember several years ago, and others. But any opportunity like this, you shouldn't leave your campus site to take it to a neutral site. I think there are exceptions to that. I generally agree, but think there are exceptions to the rule, and this is one of them. As you mentioned, if they played this game in Manhattan, that would have been 8 home games, which is, look, Kansas State, what do they make off of a home game? Is it $500,000 or something?
Yeah, there's a little bit of difference between, net and gross. For a typical home game, Gene Taylor told me yesterday, their typical net is about $500,000.
Okay.
And by playing this game in Arlington, they're projecting the net to be about $2.2 million.
All right, so that is a great point to make because, look, I have sympathy for the hotelers, the restaurateurs, the businesses that benefit from home games. Look, home games at any college town are a big deal and a big financial deal, big revenue deal for those towns. But in a year when every major athletic department budget has been strained because of the pandemic, because of COVID-19, when you have an opportunity to make money like that, you absolutely have to take that opportunity. And if it strengthens the athletic department and strengthens the university, then you've strengthened the community as well. So I salute Gene Taylor, Chris Kleiman, and Kansas State for taking this game. Heck, I wish it was at Arrowhead. I've seen Kansas State play many games at Arrowhead over the years, but the fact that it's at Arlington in a heavy recruiting zone for the Wildcats to play a game in the Metroplex, I think it's win-win for Kansas State.
I agree with you. I've kind of gone back and forth on this issue since I started writing about it almost 2 years ago now. It's been that long. It's funny. It seems like the Kansas State fans have been having this argument just periodically every time it kind of comes up for 18 months or so now. But it's happening now, and I certainly am sympathetic to local people here who subscribe to the Bill Snyder theory of the end of his tenure that as many games as possible should be played here. But I will also point out that earlier in Snyder's career, he sacrificed 2 regular season games and played them in Arrowhead. And he even made the bizarre decision to sell some conference home games to Oklahoma. There was a while there they played Oklahoma every single year on the road just because they said, we want the money. And, they find themselves in that same position now. If you've got – when you're laying off people and you're asking your coaches and your staff to work at reduced salaries, if you've got an opportunity to make an extra $1.7 million and all you're really doing is just moving the location of a home game a few hours south, as long as you're not going to do it every single season, I like it. I think for this season, it's a good idea. And one thing I found interesting in looking over the contract of this game, it almost literally will be a home game for K-State just played in Arlington. They're going to have the same, marching band performance before the game. All the hype videos will be about Kansas State. They can maybe even have bring their own PA guy to, say first down, and that's a Wildcats first down, all that stuff. This literally is, they're getting 10 times the tickets as Stanford. It's not going to be a typical neutral site kickoff game. It's a really good opportunity for them. And again, while I certainly understand that coming off a pandemic, people here in Manhattan and the surrounding community want as many home games as possible, you still got the other 7. It's not all that often that the schedule aligns like this and they have these opportunities. So you know what, if you want to do it and kind of rub shoulders with some other programs that do this every year, like Alabama, Ohio State, USC, they typically are in these games quite often. So now you can say you've done it. It's a prestige boost. I think it's a good move for them.
That's right. The big boys do it. Kansas State will be a big boy when they kick off the 2021 season. Speaking of, you're mentioning the neutral site games that Bill Snyder's teams played early in his tenure. Brings to mind a little trivia question. Let's see if you can answer this.
Okay.
In one of those games, a quarterback who is one of the 8 quarterbacks playing in the NFL playoffs divisional round this weekend made his major college debut in that game. Do you know who that quarterback was?
Well, I'm going to guess Aaron Rodgers at Cal. Is that right?
Ding, 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 ding.
All right. There we go.
You got it.
I didn't think anyone from Iowa was still playing. So, hey.
Right. That's right. Yeah, how cool. I remember this game. I remember covering the game. Kansas State got out to a big lead. And I think Jeff Tedford was the coach at Cal at the time, but he puts in Aaron Rodgers and he throws a touchdown pass and gets the offense going, and they end up making it a respectable score. And who knew at the time, right, that was Aaron Rodgers in that game.
That's crazy.
Okay, there was something else I wanted to talk to you about, Kellis, earlier this week.
Sorry to say, that kind of reminds me of there was one time when Washington State played a basketball game here in Bramlage, and they had I'm ruining this. Who's the other Splash brother with Steph Curry in Golden State? Kyle Thompson, is that his name?
Yeah, Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson, there we go, Klay Thompson. Yeah, he played a game here and came in and hit some threes. And at the time, everybody was like, "Oh, hey, that guy's pretty good.
He can play a little bit. Wonder who he is."
He was. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Okay. I think you know where I want to go with this. Speaking of kind of former great players, there was news earlier this week that Darren Sproles was elected to the College Football Hall of Fame, and great honor for Darren Sproles. I know that you and I have discussed in the past whether he should be in the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I was sort of borderline with that, but I think I've come around to thinking he should be at some point in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But he's now in the College Football Hall of Fame, and what's kind of significant about this is he went in on the first ballot, and that's extremely difficult to do in the College Football Hall of Fame when you think about all the players that are eligible, like everybody who ever played college football.
Right.
It's not. We're not talking about 32 teams, like the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're talking about more than 1,000 when you take into account Division I, Division II, FBS, FCS, NAI, junior, all the classifications. So he's getting in. I think I think it's great, and it's cool that a Kansas City area kid, Olathe North product, is going into the College Football Hall of Fame. But it also prompted some discussion about other Kansas State players who should be in the College Football Hall of Fame, because I think he's He's number 3, if I'm not mistaken, right? Gary Spaney, Bill Snyder, and now Darren Sproles. Am I missing someone?
Mark Simoneau is in there as well.
Mark Simoneau was the latest one. Mark Simoneau. So 3 players and a coach, and there clearly are some players especially from the Bill Snyder teams of the 90s, early 2000s, like Sproles, that are worthy of consideration. Who would be on top of your list for that?
I mean, it's got to be Michael Bishop. I'm actually wrote in my weekly Q&A this week that I think it's time for voters to, for whatever reason they've overlooked him, to go ahead and rethink that and give him another look, because I mean, in my book, he's the best quarterback Kansas State's ever had. You could maybe make an argument for Colin Klein or some other guys, but I think just based on pure talent, it was Bishop. And not only that, but he was the quarterback of the best team they've ever had at the height of Snyder's powers back in 98. Won 22 games in just 2 seasons with him. Consensus All-American, Davey O'Brien winner, Heisman finalist. Typically, you look at a lot of other guys that have been that close to the Heisman. They typically get the nod and go ahead and make it in the Hall. So I think there should be a spot for him. If Sproles is going to go in, if Snyder is going to go in, I don't see how you leave off Bishop. So he's the next guy I would push, definitely.
Well, he clearly deserves it, and I think he'll be in there someday. And it doesn't. I know that when candidates are considered for the College Football Hall of Fame, because once I voted on the committee that to put college football players in the Hall of Fame, that star power sometimes, NFL star power that is, sometimes is significant, but actually it's not a factor. It's a conversation piece, but it's not a factor on whether somebody gets in. So Michael Bishop will be considered clearly solely on his college accomplishments, which, as you mentioned, were pretty special. And he was spectacular. He really was. He was an amazing player. I'll never forget his season in 1998, as his senior year, and we're coming to the final few games of the regular season, and it was between him and Ricky Williams, the running back at Texas, for the Heisman Trophy. It was going to be one of those 2 guys. And then Ricky Williams went nuts in the last couple of games, and Williams ended up winning it. But I remember I went to New York to cover the Heisman final in 98 because of Bishop's possibility of winning it. So he'll get in there one day. Terrence Newman's another one, I think, that we'll see in the College Football Hall of Fame someday from Kansas State. And there will be others as well. So
yeah, Newman would be a great one. I believe Martin Gramatica was up for it, but I believe he didn't get enough votes to stay on the ballot, so we probably won't be seeing him. The other ones I could think of eventually, maybe Jordy Nelson, maybe Colin Klein, and maybe even Tyler Lockett. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. There are Kansas State. I don't want to say they're underrepresented in the Hall of Fame. There are some schools that I think are overrepresented, but look, it just takes several years for it all to catch up, and Kansas State will have their days in to celebrate other great Wildcats going into the National College Football Hall of Fame. So, okay, Kellis, great conversation, and we will talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks, Blair.
That will do it for today and this week. Thanks to our production staff and everyone who helps make SportsBeat KC happen. Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Gary Bedore, Jesse Newell, and Kellis Robinett for stopping by and talking KU and K-State sports. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we got another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage, even more terrific these days with the playoffs on our doorstep. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. That's kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com. kansascity.com/subscribe. If you're having trouble hunting down any of those offers, send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com, and we'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Monday to break down the Chiefs-Browns playoff game.